angry Americans around the country and around the world, and our amazing live studio audience here at the Manhattan Classic Car Club in New York. Welcome to a very special recording of Angry Americans, episode 45 with Meghan McCain.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
That's a really...
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I told them whoever claps the loudest gets a free Ferrari. So they are very, very happy to have
this gentleman right here.
Oh, look at that. You didn't know you were going to come and win a car, did you, sir? Well, I am so happy that you could join us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. I just taped The View and shot down the West Side Highway, so I'm happy to be here. And I'm really excited to do this. You've been getting so many amazing guests. I feel like, it's just a little tear on how many cool people you've had.
Oh, it's been fun. It's been fun. And I think I think I told you I was kind of cooking this up a while ago. And, your media career and shift has been an inspiration in part for me. But I'm also just happy you're in New York. And you and I were talking.
I've lived here since I was 18.
Yeah.
So it's not new.
So what do you think?
I went to college here.
Thank you. But what do you think about New York? I mean, you go back and forth between New York and Arizona and other places. But how do you like living in New York?
I mean, I think New York is very special, and it's the center of the universe as far as I'm concerned. And it's obviously where all media, I think, exists. And it's beautiful and incredible. I personally have to leave this city like every few weeks, or I start going really stir crazy. I grew up in Arizona and, on a ranch. So I really need nature and like guns and beer and to just be really outside. So I love this city, but I don't think I could be here forever, ever, because I'm like such a cowgirl at the end of the day. And it's hard here sometimes. I think, as everyone knows, when you're just like trying to get a cab or trying to go uptown or, trying to get groceries, it's just all a pain in the ass. So, but I do love New York, and I have great respect and gratitude for the fact that I get to live here.
I have a lot of questions I want to ask you, but as someone who has been around firearms quite a bit, one thing that people outside New York don't understand is how hard it is to find somewhere to shoot here. So have you ever?
There's a place in Chelsea.
Yeah, there's the
downtown,
one. Everybody knows that one place.
Yeah.
Where you can basically only fire pistols.
And apparently,
and 22s.
If you're a part of the Italian American Club, you can shoot in a tuxedo. I've never done that. I'm not Italian.
Really?
But I've heard you can. So
we might have to do a live show.
Someone wants to invite me, I'd be happy to go. Apparently there's a dress code, but I've been told this. I mean, look it up. I don't know, but I've never done it.
We're both wearing black. Maybe we could go there afterwards and shoot some rounds off.
It's kind of crazy. It must be like underground, or I don't know. But
the one in Chelsea is underground, and you can only shoot pistols and 22s. And they used to do a thing where you could do steak and pistols. You go and get a steak, and then you can shoot some 22s for a little while. And then there's the NYPD firearms place in, I guess there's a range somewhere in the 20s. But I think for people who live outside of New York, I don't think they realize it's incredibly hard. You have to drive a pretty long way if you want to even shoot a rifle.
I tend to do it in Arizona, Virginia. My husband and I go to Montana and Wyoming on vacations for the most part. I really like being in nature and being quiet. And I find shooting very meditative because you have to control your breathing and you have to really focus. And it's just me and the rifle and the target. And there's a very simplistic satisfaction to pulling the trigger and having it hit. And I'm better than my husband at a lot of guns, which is really fun.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
So, yes. I'm better with rifles and he's better with pistols. But and I just find it incredibly relaxing and incredibly meditative. And I think, it's, I don't know, I'm from Arizona. I always say it's gun culture is such a big part of where I came from. And I love it. It's my favorite sport. It's my favorite recreation. It's the only thing I've really ever been good at other than talking about politics. So,
and you have been great at that in the last couple of weeks. But before we get, another thing that relaxes folks that you need to relieve stress sometimes is a drink. And
yes.
a question we ask of all guests, and we ask this of you, is what is your favorite beverage of choice? We have a version of it here, but what is your favorite drink or adult beverage of choice?
Jack and Coke, super simple, and I drink it all the time. Yeah, it's kind of redneck, but it's okay.
No, it's delicious.
And I drink Bud Light. I'm really easy. I'm the cheapest date. It's really easy.
You ever put your Bud Light in the freezer?
No.
So
should I do that?
Yeah. So I learned this. If you take a Coors Light or a Bud Light and put it in the freezer for a little while, just for 5 minutes, then it's really good.
Okay,
Yeah.
I will try it.
I'd probably drink more Bud Light than you do for sure. And probably more Jack as well.
I don't know. I don't really like wine that much. I'm not really into champagne. And when I was dating, I remember men would like take me to really nice restaurants and be like, this is the, Chardonnay, whatever. I don't know wine at all. And I'd be like, you're wasting this on the wrong chick because I don't care at all. And it's not what I want. And I feel bad because clearly there's a woman out there that's going to be really impressed by this. And I just wanted Jack Daniels. So
I love that choice. We've had all different kinds of.
It's like confusing and it's complicated and I don't like the way it tastes. So, there you go.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I have a Jack and Coke. I think you just have a Coke per your request.
I can't drink during the week anymore. This is what I'm 35. And as I have gotten older, because my call time is so early in the morning, if I have like a Jack and Coke right now, first of all, I have a hard time just having one. I'll have like 2 or 3 and then I'll be socializing with you. And then I can't like prep and then I can't get up early because I have really bad hangovers now. So as cool as I sound at my like Jack Daniels, I can only drink on the weekends now. So I'm sorry. And it is, 2:00 in the afternoon.
It gets harder, Megan. After I hit 40, hangovers were devastating. And hangovers are even more devastating when you have a 2-year-old like jumping on your face or something like that. But hangovers, I wish I could tell you it's going to get easier. I think it's going to get tougher.
I used to be like a champ, and now like over New Year's, I was like just put down in the ground. Like I was just out. I went to Barcelona with my husband, and we were supposed to like go to museums the next day, and I was like, I have to stay in bed because I'm just a total pansy now, I guess. But I can't drink the way I used to. Sucks getting older.
It does, but you also have wisdom now, and you've been on this amazing journey. But I want to ask you another question we ask of all our guests. When you were growing up in Arizona, Meghan McCain, what was your first car?
Yeah, this is so embarrassing. I had a VW Beetle and it was green. I know. It's like, and I totaled it at some point. I don't remember when. And then that was it for cars. I haven't owned a car. No, I'm sorry. I owned a car when I lived in LA briefly, or leased one. But yeah, that was my car. And I'm still a terrible driver.
What kind of green was it?
Like lime green, like hideous.
Really?
Yeah. When I was 17 or 18, whenever I had it, it was like the coolest car. Like it was in the Mandy Moore music video, Candy. And like, it was so cool. And now I'm like, this is the most hideous car ever. And it's not cool at all.
How did you wreck it?
I did it in Sedona, and I think I just I don't remember. I turned and I smashed the side of it on a mountain, and it was bad, but I was fine and no one got hurt, thank God. But I was scared from driving ever since then. I'm a really bad driver. I tend not to drive if I don't have to.
But that's in part with first cars. Before, I think I smashed my first car 4 times. There was one point where the bumper was so indented that my father and my brother and I had to get a come along. You know what a come along is? Kind of like a winch. We wrapped it around a tree and pulled out the bumper just so that it wouldn't scrape the wheels and could be drivable. But I think I smashed that thing all the time.
So funny.
Yeah.
I mean, dangerous, but yeah.
So speaking of dangerous and speaking of crashed and wrecked up, here we sit after the debacle that was the Iowa Caucuses. I
was so bummed out last night. I went home. My husband and I were watching, and he said the returns are going to start coming in at 9, and we'll have an answer. And it's the beginning of everything, and we're going to finally know, at least get some idea of who the nominee will be, and there'll be momentum. And then it was 9 o'clock. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And they just kept saying, that the returns weren't coming in. There were all these problems. And I got more and more progressively angry. So I just went to bed at midnight, and I was like, forget this. And I woke up in the morning and they were like, yeah, still no idea who it's going to be. And it's just really disappointing. I think of all the campaigns and the people and the money they've spent and the time and energy, and people leave their families to go work on campaigns, and people spend real time and real sacrifices, and what a waste for all the candidates and their families and the people that did it. And if Iowa can't pull their shit together, they don't deserve to have the responsibility of the first in the nation caucus, and they should just become part of the primary system, as far as I'm concerned, next election cycle, because we're at such high stakes right now. I don't think this country can deal with human error or whatever error is happening. I don't completely understand what's going wrong right now. I know there's an app issue. And I think it's very serious, and these candidates deserve, I believe from what I've seen, Bernie may have won, and then Mayor Pete, and Bernie and Mayor Pete, if they won, deserve to have the momentum coming out of Iowa into New Hampshire. And now they've been robbed of that. And I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, and I think, thank you, folks. So I think that's one of the reasons why...
It's probably personal because I spent so much of my youth on campaigns and I really know what it looks like and what it takes. Yeah,
that's one reason why I was excited to talk to you now, because I think that, people in the public eye can be viewed as, as one thing, but they forget there's a personal side to them. And you grew up around this. You grew up in campaigns, and that gives you, a viewpoint as a strategist, right? You and I were talking before we came out here, just thinking about the fact that Klobuchar came out first. I tweeted it last night. I said, look, whoever jumps up in front of that camera first is got the best advertising they could ever ask for. And Klobuchar jumped on the mic, and then Bernie came out, and Warren came out, and Biden came out, and Buttigieg didn't come out till after, I think, midnight. But there was this moment where they were all kind of strategizing, and you have always called bullshit, which I think is part of why people respect you and part of why people get annoyed.
People really hate me too. It's yin or yang depending on what environment I'm in.
But you also say you don't know. And part of the struggle of last night was I felt like we were watching the media cover a hurricane, in that no one knew what the hell was going to happen. And they were talking to a bunch of people who didn't know what the hell was going to happen. They all just kind of swirled it around. Like half the time I was trying not to put it on pause and go watch Cheer on Netflix.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're in this world of punditry, Meghan, right? Where people don't say they don't.
No, I hate the word pundit, even if that is what I am, just because it has such a negative connotation. It's like assholes on TV that just are sitting there pontificating about nothing. And, if you get things wrong in punditry, there's kind of no ramifications. I know a lot of people that got 2016 really wrong and they still have amazing jobs on TV. And I think there should be more responsibility for the media's lack of awareness of the country we live in. Yeah. That's just, but I hate the word pundit. Sorry.
No, I think that's right. I haven't used it. I consider myself an activist.
Yeah.
Or an advocate. And you're an activist and an advocate for many causes. But can you go, even independent of your personal experience, if you can, what is it like for families right now? Almost all the candidates have families. Other political families. You've been open about how many of these folks personally. But can you talk about the human side of this that maybe gets lost? I was watching Bernie last night. And I don't know if it was his grandson or somebody was standing next, and I honestly didn't know who the kid was. There's a kid up there, and he's maybe 10. I mean, there was one point where you were that kid. Mm-hmm. So what is it like for those families? And now what is it like for you to be on the outside looking at them?
I had a really semi-charmed experience. The happiest moments of my life as a child and an adolescent were somehow related to my dad's campaigns and in politics. But I tend to be a unicorn. I know a lot of politicians' children who have really negative experiences, really negative memories of had to go to therapy to deal with everything that happened. But my dad was always so different in so many different ways. And I think he always treated me like I was a real person with a real voice and a real opinion he should listen to, even far before I earned the right to have that. And I worshiped him. I think everybody knows that. And I really enjoyed being on the road with him and watching him and observing and seeing everything that goes into campaigns, nationally and locally in Arizona. And it taught me everything I know. And I just have a really positive, happy, even when he lost, I just have beautiful memories of everything and memories that have really I really hold very dear now that he's gone, because it's never going to be that way again. He also had really unique campaigns. He had the Straight Talk Express, which was his bus that it was all on the record, and journalists could come in and hang out and talk, and he didn't care. It was all on the record. That would never happen now, ever, under any circumstances. And so I think my situation was particularly unique. But my heart goes out to their families. I think that's why I'm so angry about Iowa, because how many families have gone out and campaigned. And I don't like AOC and I don't like Bernie Sanders, and I vehemently disagree with them. But AOC was out just hustling for him really hard and campaigning with him the last few weeks. And what's the point of her taking time away from Congress and going to do this if there's going to be no? And I'm very angry. This is one thing I'm an angry American about today, is that we fucked up the caucus. But it's what's the point of everyone putting all this energy and effort in if there's going to be no answer and we're not going to have a result? And I pray it doesn't happen again in any primary.
I think every week, there's a new reason to be angry, right? And folks, in the beginning, we started the show, they're like, angry Americans, who's angry American? Like every week, there's a new reason for a lot of people. There's a lot of angry people in Iowa. There's a lot of angry people outside of Iowa. And we say, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
And I think it can be actually a uniting force and hopefully can drive change. The fact that Iowa, that's 91% white and, much older than any other state in the union is ridiculous in my view in determining the trajectory of our national election for either party.
One of my co-hosts said that this morning, that because it's so white, it's not reflective of the Democratic coalition. And that's why she was against it being first caucus.
And it was also kind of crazy. Like I flipped over to C-SPAN a few times, which I recommend everybody do often. And you could see there was one point where two guys were choosing and they flipped a coin. And then
it's ridiculous.
And it's not anonymous. So you have to actually go out and stand up in front of your friends, in front of your neighbors and say, I'm going to move for this person. And you have to eventually usually change for someone else. But the fact that it's public and not anonymous, I think is deeply undemocratic. But I want to go back to your dad, because I don't know if you know this. The first campaign event I ever went to in my life was an event for your dad. And
where and what?
It was on Wall Street when I was working on Wall Street, and they came around and said, hey, John McCain's doing an event. He's running for president. He had, was in the primaries. And I was like, I like John McCain. I read his book. He was an inspiration to me. And I remember, I was an independent. And at that point, I was looking at John McCain as a person who had integrity, who was a leader, who was a patriot. And I was a dude standing on the steps, and they handed me a card, and I stood there, and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to get to see John McCain. And I was like maybe, 50 feet away from him. But I think you felt that sense of unity. You felt that sense of leadership and integrity, which, defined his career and has defined his legacy. But when you look back on it now, Meghan, if your dad was getting out of the Navy and getting into politics, a lot of our folks are independent or unaffiliated. Do you think he would be a Republican?
Yeah, I think so. I think because Trump was elected when he was still alive and he remained in the party. I believe so, at least. I mean, I have a hard time pontificating on what he would do now because he was extremely unpredictable in his career. So it's hard. I could never say. People have been asking me a lot about impeachment, and I'm like, I can't, I don't know. I don't know what he would have done one way or the other. But he always did what he thought was right. And the times that he didn't, it haunted him forever. So, I think he would remain a Republican, but it's really hard for me to guess.
For folks that we have made a huge part of the focus of this show on the unaffiliateds and the independents, the 40% and growing that don't want either party. So I asked this of everybody.
The silent majority in the country. Yeah.
And increasingly less silent, right? And maybe Bloomberg kind of represents some of that. There are other candidates that want to represent some of that independent spirit. Trump does on some levels, people who put their country ahead of their party. But when you think about this Republican Party, you've been one of the voices that, if they were smart, would be part of the next generation. But you're fighting against this other thing now, this morph, this Borg that's become the Republican Party. How do you make a case for being a Republican? And I could make the same argument about Democrats. That's why I'm neither. But why are you a Republican? And if someone is contemplating it, how can they get behind a party that looks like this now?
Well, everyone has to make their own personal decision, obviously. I think if you like the way the Iowa caucus was handled and you like the way government runs things and you think that's a great way to do things, then yeah, you should be a Democrat. If you think the answer to everything is big government, 100%. I call myself a conservative. I still vote Republican. I'm registered Republican, but I feel much more like a conservative than a Republican in the sense that Republicanism has been co-opted by Trumpism so much. And obviously I'm not a Trumper and I never have been, but I feel like if people like me just leave the party, then what happens? Who is really left? And I think that's really scary. And I also think that politics is really cyclical, and this is a season that will pass, because one way or the other, even if Trump's reelected, he won't be in office past 4 years. Unless he appoints himself king, which I don't think that will happen. I just think for me, it's more interesting to try and create change and be a thorn in Trumpism's side right now than leave. I don't have a ton of respect for pundits and commentators and activists who pretend to be Republicans but never fight for anything conservative whatsoever, because being a Republican isn't all about Trump. For me, it's about the military, it's about freedom, it's about guns, it's about God, it's about the right to life. A lot of just tenets of who I am and the prism in which I view the world. So I get very angry when I see people on TV that still claim to be Republicans, but if clearly, they're, pro-choice, voting for all these tenets that just, what's the point of saying you're a Republican then? And I get frustrated at that. And I never want to not represent the people that I think I represent on TV effectively. I try. I don't know if I do it every day, but there are definitely some people, like Bill Kristol recently came out saying he's a Democrat. And I was like, no shit, Sherlock. Like when, you left the party a long time ago, and that's fine. I get it. I hate Trump. I get it. But some of us are still trying to change something and fight for something here.
And Meghan, I feel like there's an opening right now. Like if there was a legacy if there was a McCain party, right? If like what your dad stood for, it was something that wasn't Republican and wasn't Democrat, it would have huge support. Right. And I think that sometimes
what's interesting is when he was alive, when he ran for president, you got to get in your time machine. But like he was accused of being like George Wallace when he was running by like a pretty famous congressman. And he was called like, horrific things that I don't remember. And sometimes it's hard for me because I have Democrats coming up to me, on the minute now in New York saying, I love your dad. I love your dad. He was amazing. I should have appreciated him when he was here. And in the angry American vein, I'm like, yeah, you should have. You should have appreciated what you had when he was here. And the problem right now is there's nobody I see that's left in the party that's like going to take an independent strain. And Mitt Romney doesn't count. He doesn't do it for me. And he's a weather vane for me that will do anything at any point to placate anyone. And I get angry sometimes and I'm like, yeah, like he was the real deal and he really cared, and he really cared about bipartisanship, and he really was trying to bring people together versus tearing them apart. And I felt like it was not underappreciated, but not appreciated. It's sad that he has to die to have it be appreciated in the way that it is now.
I appreciated it. And I appreciate it.
And a lot of people did.
No, but I want you to know that I appreciated it in part because I fought with your dad, right? And there were, when we were working through the GI Bill, a couple of times there were issues that there were sticking points about transferability on other things. And it was years later, but I remember one time when your dad called me to make a case after Phoenix when they were trying to figure out what to do with the future of the VA. We were on different sides of the privatization issue, and your dad and I had a really spirited discussion. He spoke during most of it, and I was incredibly deferential. But at the end, there was kind of a feeling like a handshake afterward. In a respectful way, like when you're in a boxing match. Afterward, you touch gloves. And your dad always did that, whether you were on his side or you were on a different side. And there was also a very warm side to him. Like I always say, as an infantry guy from the Army, he always kind of felt like that fighter pilot, that guy who was joking around, who didn't take himself too seriously. And that's a side of him that I don't think most people saw, but I saw it when I was a young activist. And he treated me and so many other young veterans working on the Hill with respect. But he also taught us how to fight.
That's
which
awesome.
I think was really important. Fight hard, fight for what you believe in, but also fight fair.
Yeah.
And that the long-term relationships are more important than those short-term fights. So I think you're right. I don't think people appreciate him, in part because I don't think they understand the process.
I think they appreciate him now. I mean, he's beloved by everyone. I mean, he was when he was alive, but there's something about him passing and the time that he did and how he died that has made people like really, really, really appreciate him. And that's good. But I always think that like, had he become president, would you appreciate it? I don't know. But I'm also like terribly protective of him and his legacy. And I'm very territorial and very like, obviously I'm his daughter. So, I just hope that if there is a Republican who comes up and is sort of free thinking in the way that he was, I hope it's appreciated in the same way. Because we're so tribal on both sides, on both sides just wants to stay in their corners and be as radical as possible. And they're applauded for it. And I don't like that.
There's a piece of his legacy too that I think is underappreciated, but not underappreciated by veterans. He was almost, elected president. If he had been, he would have been the only Vietnam veteran elected president. And John Kerry
kind of crazy.
It is. But if you think back now, that window's closed. There will never be a Vietnam veteran who is president of the United States. There was a point where 3 of them were cabinet members when Shinseki, Hagel, and Kerry, I think, were all in the cabinet. And your father got close and Kerry got close, but that window's gone. This will be maybe, one of the only large generations of veterans that never has anybody in the White House. So I think that's something that we thought about. And part of what galvanized support behind him was the fact that they trusted his integrity and they knew his service spanned beyond politics. But now, you represent a lot of things. You have a huge following. When you look at the landscape, you're not going to vote for Trump. Who do you think people like you will go for now? This is a dynamic situation. Iowa's happening, State of the Union's this week.
Like to vote for?
Yeah. Where do you think people like you are going to fall out in this mess? Like, I criticize them a lot. The Democrats are eating their own constantly, and they're going to go to New Hampshire and eat their own. And that's just kind of their bag. Why Republicans get together in line and kind of defend whatever the plan is,
yeah.
right? But Democrats consistently eat their own. Given this landscape, where do you think people like you are right now, Meghan?
I mean, without a home, I think. But I've written in the past 3 elections, so this wouldn't be new to write in again. I'll probably end up writing in if it's Bernie, then that's exactly my response. I mean, it's just, there's do not pass go, do not collect $200.
So if it's Bernie, would you vote for Trump, or you would just
no,
never?
No.
But you wouldn't vote for Bernie either.
No.
So you'd write in.
So I just write in someone.
Who would you write in?
I don't know, Paul Ryan. I don't know. It's no one that's running. I don't know. It's terribly disappointing. I don't not vote. I always vote, especially because I think it's important to vote down ballot.
Right.
But I don't like any of. I mean, I really love Joe Biden as a person. I think he's a truly decent man. His campaign is not going exactly how I thought it would. I thought he would be really at the front of the pack and pushing forward. And there's time. I mean, after South Carolina, I want to see what happens because he probably will win by a large margin. But it should be, I think for Democrats, it should be easier because Trump is a pretty easy target and he has a terribly flawed person. And this shouldn't be this hard. So I think that's what's scaring a lot of people because I think people are waking up to it right now. But if the option is socialism or Trump, I think it's a hard call for a lot of people. Well, I don't think it's a hard call for Republicans. I don't know if they'll vote for Trump. Probably, actually. Most probably will.
Yeah.
Not me, though. I can't. I could never.
When you last night, you had a quote that I thought was great about Buttigieg. So Buttigieg is getting a lot of flack this week for essentially declaring victory last night, and in many ways he was doing well. Whether he wins or not, he will have done.
If it's accurate, he came in second, which is obviously very noble.
Right. But he said he basically had given the impression that he had won, and you had a tweet about it. Do you mind sharing what you said about it? Because I thought it was insightful.
I said the most millennial thing about Mayor Pete is that he was declaring victory when no returns came in, and it was the tweets he sent out last night were just so dramatic and over the top. It was we came, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember what exactly it said, but it was I came in with a hope and a dream, and tonight we shattered that dream or something like that. And I was you didn't win and nothing is declared. And it just seemed really weird to take. I hate when people take unearned victory laps. And I know I'm sure he did great and whatever, but I don't think he'll be president. And that's fine. He's, again, ran an amazing campaign. He's coming on The View on Thursday. He's a really interesting politician, but he did not win last night. And it just seemed weird to be high-fiving and we made it. It's over. It was like very millennial.
Yeah, it was like he had drafted the tweets at 9:00.
Yeah,
and then he just sent the same tweet without editing it.
There's 5 tweets. Read it. Again, it's very over the top.
Yeah, it was definitely spiking the ball before you got across the goal line, right?
Yes.
And now he's going to walk it back. But he was on this show and he was very compelling. And I think if there is an outcome out of Iowa, that moment that they would have had last night, whoever it was, this week is gone, right? Because State of the Union happens now.
Yeah.
And then they go into impeachment this week. And then the end of the week is another debate for New Hampshire. So New Hampshire. You've spent time in New Hampshire. You cover New Hampshire.
I love
what do you
New
think
Hampshire.
People need to know about New Hampshire that they might not know unless
it's not Mayor Pete's town, man. Yeah. It's just not. He's not going to do well. It's a very independent, I think arguably the most independent thinking state in the union. And their motto is live free or die, which is my personal Twitter bio, just because I love it. Live free or die sounds so I think it's the ethos of what I believe in. I love New Hampshire. It's such an incredible place, just beautiful. And then the citizens of the state take their vote so seriously that they go to I think the average is 3 to 5 town halls per individual to see each candidate. And they take it so seriously. And whomever wins in New Hampshire will get a lot of momentum. But I don't know. I just think that I love New Hampshire. I love the New Hampshire primary. I'm glad it's finally here because I think we're all kind of sick of the debates and sick of all the, there's so many candidates this cycle. I don't know where it's going. Other than I really, truly love New Hampshire, and I have beautiful memories from my time there.
You love Arizona. You write about Arizona. You talk about Arizona. I have been extremely critical of the senator who now holds your father's seat, Martha McSally, who I think has been weak, has lacked integrity, has put partisanship ahead of patriotism, and I think most of all has kind of disrespected your father's Senate seat and the way she carries herself. There's this famous now video of her turning to the CNN Manu Raju guy. He says to him, you're just a liberal hack. And it was kind of a nasty way and just felt below.
By the way, there are liberal hacks that are journalists. It is not Manu Raju.
Right.
He's like a really great congressional correspondent who's been like doing it for a really long time and is just hustling on the Hill. It was the weirdest person to pick to say liberal hack for me. I was like, Manu Raju is not like Jim Acosta, we can talk, but like Manu Raju, like, it just works really hard on Capitol Hill. It made me sad. But
the way she has carried herself, I keep looking, especially in the era of Trump, of leaders that our kids could look up to, right? Like I want to be able to point to the screen and say to my sons, be like that man, be like that woman. And we have the opposite of that with Trump. So can you expand? You've been pretty critical of McSally, I think rightfully so. I think everybody has. What are your thoughts on her right now? And she's up against Kelly, who's an astronaut, who is a kind of a moderate guy relative to the Democratic Party now. Can you talk about your thoughts on what's happening there? And would you ever run for Senate back home?
I am not running for Senate, nowhere near it. I think you should live in your home state and be an active participant and all politics is local, as everyone knows. I mean, you have to be so active in the local Republican Party, and I obviously am not and haven't been for a long time. In regards to McSally, she infamously also didn't say my dad's name when Trump came to Arizona, I believe, and they were signing the bill named after him, the Veterans Bill. And neither she nor Trump said my dad's name, and the bill is named after him. And it was like very close to when he passed, I think 10 days before. And I was very, very emotional, as everyone can understand. And I was just like, are you kidding me with this? Are you and I tweeted something. I don't remember what I tweeted exactly, but it was very critical of her doing that. And for me, it's just not that hard to have a little bit of integrity in tough situations and around Trump. It's just not that hard. It's not that hard to be like, and John McCain is, this whom this bill's named after. We honor you, whatever, anything, but not saying his name at all was very, very hurtful for me and for my family. And so it's not fair that so much of my perspective on a lot of people is personal, but I can't help it. And I don't pretend that I'm completely objective. But I just haven't been a fan since then. And then the Manu Raju moment, it played really well with the base. I mean, she was like on Sean Hannity and she was, really milking it. I think she sold t-shirts that said liberal hack. It's just not my kind of politics and it's not my kind of leadership. And I think it'll work really well in this moment. And then as soon as this moment's passed, it's not going to work well anymore. And astronaut Mark Kelly is a really formidable candidate. And I have a lovely relationship with him, even though he's Democratic as possible. And he's been very, very kind to me, him and his wife, for a long time. And I think I know she has a really, really tight race right now. Arizona could be a total blue state. It's crazy.
I've been honored to know Mark Kelly and meet him. I think, he is a person who's been through a lot. In so many different phases of his life. And I think, the integrity contrast of Martha McSally, who is now devolved, in my view, to a hack. Manu Raju is not a hack. I think that she's become a hack for Trump versus an astronaut who is... and
Gabby Gifford's husband.
And the power that they could bring, if only to elevate the interest of Arizona, right? Like if you have a rock star senator like that, to elevate the interest of the people back home would be, I think, pretty significant.
Yeah, so, Arizona is a really interesting state. It's like kind of like Nevada. It's very sort of fringy and independent, and it's kind of hard to poll because there's just so many free thinking people. And I think people like Cinema, and I think he just likes to be called Mr. Mark Kelly, but I always call him Astronaut Kelly.
Right.
Because if you're an
to use that
astronaut,
forever. It's like being ambassador. You get to be called astronaut forever.
Astronaut Kelly.
Yeah.
But, I think that if he plays his cards right and he doesn't go, hard left, he could definitely win. But I like having being from a state where the senators are really, independent, free thinkers that don't kowtow to pressure from their parties. So, I won't be surprised if he wins. Because again, I think that the Trump red meat, you're a liberal hack stuff works to a point, but I would argue she already has that audience and she already has that fan base or whatever voters. And, but you don't get the independence. You don't get anything else. So I didn't understand it when she did it. I didn't really get it. And it seemed like kind of planned, like to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on TV a long time. It seems like it wasn't exactly off the cuff. So, but we'll see. We'll see. But Trump only won Arizona, I think, by 4 points in 2016. So it's not full Trump country everywhere. So, a huge Hispanic population in Arizona, obviously.
Yeah. And Trump kind of wakes up every morning and gives us new reason to be angry. But it's unique for you because, you never know when your name or your family's name is going to come out of his mouth or up on Twitter. And I think that that's something that those of us who admire your father and admire your family, take as an issue we feel like we need to stand up on. I feel like it's the utmost of disrespect where he insulted him, but then it continued with the Khan family and so many other issues. Are you surprised that it didn't hurt him more? And especially with conservatives, that he was able to not just attack your father, but consistently attack people in uniform. And then now it's expanded into the generals who've turned on him and others. But there's been a consistent attack on the military. That he used to say my generals, but now he's flipped. But it started with the attacks on your dad.
It's actually statistically the only thing that makes his base turn on him is the attacks on the Khan family and the attacks on my dad and any attack on the military. It's statistically the only thing. Several pollsters have confirmed it for me. And I have had the privilege of meeting Mr. Khan, Khizr Khan's father. He actually came on The View a bit ago to talk about his son and talk about President Trump attacking veterans. It's disgusting. But I'm not in bed crying about it every night because I'm secure in who I am and who my family, who we are and who my dad was. And, again, I can't, whether it's genuine or not, I cannot get a bagel in this city without someone saying something wonderful about my dad. And that's everywhere and all around the country, people that recognize me or recognize my name on my credit card or whatever. It's always beautiful and positive. Democrats, like, I'm a Democrat, but I love your dad. I'm a Republican. I'm an independent. He was the man. I would assume Ivanka Trump doesn't have a similar experience that I do walking around the city. Right. So for me, it's like, this all speaks for itself. I sleep very well at night. I've got no problems. Like, people aren't kicking me out of spin class, because of who my dad is. And, I think there are consequences for trafficking in this kind of rhetoric, and maybe they don't like what they see, but they will, one way or another, I think the Pied Piper will come one way or another. And it's not okay for me that it's not right now, but I think one way or another, we're going to all pay for this. And meaning us Republicans, this won't go unanswered. It won't right now because he's in power. But when he's not in power, I'm good friends with a CNN commentator named S.E. Cupp. And we say the same thing all the time. At a certain point we'll pay for this. And I just feel very comfortable in who my dad was and what he represents versus what the Trumps represent. It's pretty straightforward and black and white for me.
It is. And so I want to pivot into asking you a question, Meghan, that I do ask of everyone, because there is plenty of reason to be, I think, understandably angry. It can range for folks from school shootings to the situation with Iran to coronavirus. Pick an issue to something new. But Meghan McCain, what makes you angry?
Every day there's something different that will make me angry. It's a hard question. Today's the Iowa Caucus, clearly. What makes me angry? I think what makes me angry right now is just how polarized we are, and it makes me upset and it makes me sad because it shouldn't be so uncommon for people of, I'm sure we disagree on many things, to come together and meet in the middle, and ultimately we're all Americans. And it makes me so sad that we're so divided, that people don't want to socialize with each other. People don't want to go home to their family over the holidays. And I think seeing how divided we are as a country makes me the most angry and upset at the same time.
But like, your family spirit, you turn that into positive impact. It's something we've talked about. George Washington being the original angry American, right? And all the way through generations of activists. And you also do a lot of charitable work. You give back, you're involved in the community. That seems to be part of the family ethos. When I think the first time you came to an event to support us, you came with Clay Aiken. And
one of the closest friends.
Yeah, yes. which was amazing because you helped bring people over to veterans issues, right?
It's really easy for people to support veterans issues. That's another issue that, like, again, it doesn't matter where you stand. You could bring the most, intense socialist Democrat in here and the most hard right. And that is always something people will come together on. And if you don't, you're a sociopath. If you can't support veterans issues.
I love that.
But I've never met anyone that doesn't, so I'm sure it exists someplace, but that's crazy.
Yeah, except for Trump lately. I mean, we say a lot of times in politics, it's about babies, puppies, and vets. They're like the three things that you have to always get right. Babies, puppies, and vets. And if you screw it up, it's devastating for you politically. But somehow Trump has defied at least the last one, and he's been able to, in my view, attack veterans in a very public way with minimal backlash. But I do think it's coming later.
I think it's coming. I mean, I think there has been backlash, but people are seduced by power. And I think people are also, at least Republicans I know, are scared at the alternative. Like they hate Trump and they disagree with his character. But the idea of like 70% in taxes and Medicare for all petrifies them. And the left, I implore them to present something that's rational. And if they can't, I don't understand this like Bernie or bust. And again, it won't be nothing new. Bernie supporters are terrible to me on social media. The Bernie bros, just like, it's like a gazelle among a herd of lions. They're always attacking me, but I really don't understand that this paradigm shift to the other side. I wish that, I'm so old school. I want like a normal, rational, calm, character-driven leader. I don't care if they're boring. I just want like a normal person that makes me feel safe.
Well, Hillary recently caught a ton of shit because she said that, Bernie didn't get that much done and nobody really liked him in the Senate. But that's true. I worked in the Senate, worked on Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, worked on issues with Bernie. And part of the untold side of this is his ideology and his rigor, which many respect because he's so ideologically driven, stopped him from getting things done. In that veterans bills would be omnibus bills. You had to vote for everything and he didn't want to carve them up and it had to be all in or nothing. And for a long time on the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, he didn't get things done. And it was seen through a prism of attacks on socialized medicine rather than recognizing that the VA sometimes is just fucked up. And he became an apologist for the VA in a way that I think has not yet been called out appropriately. When Amy Klobuchar was on the stage and said, and these are the reasons why we should love these candidates on the stage, and said, and Bernie passed that great veterans bill. Bernie actually lost that veterans bill. A senior Senate Republican told me, who was not the ranking member of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, I asked him, I said, why wasn't the minority leader in that room with Bernie Sanders? Why was it John McCain? And they said because he's afraid of McCain and McCain will win. If they sent McCain in a room against Bernie Sanders, they knew McCain would win. And on that big Veterans Choice bill, McCain did win. But your father got a carve out that was an opening for choice that later became choice, which in many ways was like Bernie selling the farm. He opened up the door to privatization, which is the opposite of socialized medicine, the VA, in a way that I don't think socialists understand, democratic socialists understand. Bernie gave that up. So in that moment when the real negotiation happened, he lost. And I don't think people know that part of the history, and I had to share it now because you can't rewrite it. But he was difficult in the Senate, and he was hard to deal with. And if Democrats think all of a sudden he's just going to work with everybody, they're forgetting his past. I mean, he could very much be the spoiler for everybody. So
look, when you were in middle school and if you ever ran for office in middle school and you said, I'm going to give free pizza every day and root beer, you would probably win. Yeah. I mean, people love free shit. Yeah. It's just not, what's it going to cost and where is it going to come from? But my husband always reminds me, Bernie is the most popular politician statistically in America by far. And he has a huge following. I don't underestimate him at all. I think he very well could be the nominee, very well could be it. And, then we're really going to see the DNC and the Democratic Party probably implode, at least at the convention. But I agree with everything
Free
you
shit's
said.
good politics. Andrew Yang, is promising
Free shit.
a dividend.
Free.
Yeah, but even this is a part of George Bush's genius that I think is forgotten, is after he got elected, everyone got a check. We got right after George Bush was elected in his first term, there was a tax rebate. Essentially, it was like a $300 check. I remember getting the check, and it was signed by George Bush in the corner. And I was like, "Shit! I just got $300. That's pretty good. No president's ever given me a check before." I mean, it is a road to populism, right? I mean, especially in this environment where if you can simplify.
George Bush wasn't that fiscally conservative. Lest we forget, he's a huge spender.
So, Meghan, when you take a step back from all of the politics. You still have been able to maintain a tenacity and I think a focus that really inspires people, especially the folks that really do. And in the midst, I got to tell you, of what is disgustingly ferocious attacks. I mean, there are some people that I know personally and professionally, and I'm an interesting barometer because if I mention them in my Twitter feed or they mention me, I get to see like an onslaught, right? And it was like Rachel Maddow, not that much, interestingly. Chris Cuomo, intensity, of negativity, unbelievable shit they say about Chris Cuomo and you, even you're mentioned or any kind of a reference.
The easiest way to get someone to click on something or get angry is just put my name in anything.
Yeah.
And then people will freak out and start talking about how I'm the worst woman in the world and blah, 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 blah. Still have a job.
But I don't think I don't think most people, unless they're in your orbit, appreciate the nastiness of it. So how do you stay positive? They want, a lot of folks just want you to go away, right? I know that as an activist, they just want you to go away, shut up, drive you underground and make you leave Twitter, but you still stay in the mix.
The New York Times editorial board wrote a whole op-ed a few weeks ago saying The View has a Meghan McCain problem and then went to link to a change.org petition to get me fired. This is the New York Times. Right. And then did a whole essay or whatever piece talking about why I'm the worst, I'm the devil, I'm Satan, I'm the worst, and pro-life women shouldn't have a platform, and blah, 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 blah. And it was like a hate piece a girl in high school would have written about me. It was like so beneath the editorial standards that I believe the New York Times should be, but I guess they just don't care anymore. But it's all the time. It's not just like blogs and Twitter. It's like mainstream people I threaten people in a way that I don't understand. There's something about like a strong conservative woman who doesn't give a shit that just threatens certain people in a certain way. And I think those people maybe need to check like what inside them is so threatened by me that they feel the need to like write op-eds and do all these things. But ABC has been incredibly supportive of me, and the president of the news division, James, has been incredibly supportive, and they understand that, if I'm not on that show, there's not a conservative, and I love my co-host, but to say that they're left is putting it very nice. And we have to be reflective of the country. It's called The View. So we have to reflect the views of the country. So, I don't know. I never thought, when I started my career, I would be this controversial and I would have this much hate directed at me. And honestly, it bothers my mom and my family and my husband a lot more than it bothers me. I'm sort of at the point now where I'm like, at least people are still talking. I'm not boring you. I know a lot of people that are trying to hustle on TV that are boring the shit out of you and can't get anywhere and are not saying anything interesting. And I just go out every day and try and speak the truth and try and be, just try and have the integrity of what I believe. And I'm not trying to spin anyone. I'm not trying to get invited to any cocktail parties here in the city. I've been to every fucking party in the world. I don't need to go to any more parties. I don't need to be in any magazines. I don't need to be celebrated. I just want to speak the truth about what I believe in politics, because I feel like I've been lied to a lot and that the media continues to lie to people. And I don't want to lie to anyone about Trump could very well get reelected. Right now, if I had to bet today, I would say he is. We'll see how Democrats, they try and actually be strategic and smart about it. But it's a long-winded answer other than I've just gotten very used to being controversial, and people are very unkind too. I mean, it comes with the territory. I try not to complain, but people yell at me on the street and crap like that too, which I've just gotten used to.
Part of what I think people have to respect is your willingness to go into the fray and your willingness to be outnumbered, right? There's nobody on MSNBC that is the equivalent of you. Right? There's nobody who's battling three people who are on political opposite sides in the way you are. I can't think of it, right? Those days are gone. There are a couple of sacrificial lambs on Fox, but they're not every day trying to hold their ground. And I think that's something that the country needs, right? We need to have a real discussion. There are too many, circular conversations where everyone's in heated agreement. I mean, MSNBC is pretty much the worst, and Fox actually pierces it a little more than others. You rarely see a very conservative person on MSNBC, almost never. Like Steve Schmidt is as good as it gets, right? So I think people have to respect your willingness to go into the fight and fight for what you believe in and do it in that kind of an environment. But when you look across the Republican landscape, who are the stars for you, for S.E. Cupp, for others? The Republican Party would be a whole lot better if you and S.E. Cupp were in front than Kellyanne Conway and the people they have now. But who do you think represents the future of this party? We had J.T. Lewis on here, a young guy from Connecticut. We've had David Bellavia, other Republicans. But who represents the future that you want to see in the Republican Party?
There's like local people running. Speaking of veterans, a friend of mine, Earl Granville, who is running for Congress in Pennsylvania, is a veteran, lost his leg in Iraq. He's running for Congress, and I adore him. And I think there's a lot of like inspiring people coming up locally right now. I really like Dan Crenshaw. I really love Steve Scalise. I really love, the people that I really think of as like Tom Coburn and people that aren't really in power anymore. But I always think just because like it's not here right this second doesn't mean it won't come. Obama no one knew who he was until he got elected to the Senate and then, immediately ran for president. He had like very small name ID. So people come out of nowhere, but I don't feel terribly inspired by like what I see in front of me right now. I don't know if you do.
No, I think Crenshaw is one to watch. I mean, Crenshaw is the closest thing that the right has to AOC. I mean, he's been a master of social media. He was on Saturday Night Live. He's been able to cross over, and he has a personal story and an ability to drive his narrative and capture attention in a way that's very unique. I mean, he is the kind of guy that if Trump got rid of Pence, he would consider replacing him with. He's got such a captivating story. He's kind of this mythical superhero guy with an eye patch and the whole thing, right? But he's also very good at media and very good at new media in a way that someone like AOC is. So I think Crenshaw is one to watch, regardless of how you feel about his individual politics. He's a rocket ship, and if it continues, he could definitely be the new face of the Republican Party, especially with that military and national security background.
Yeah, definitely.
But so last question I want to ask you, Meghan, beyond all the politics, you stay grounded. You care very deeply about your family. You give back to the community. Meghan McCain, what makes you happy?
There's this quote that I have taped to my mirror that says, live fast because it won't last. And I just feel like this all fades. And I have such a feeling of my mortality and time since my dad died and since he was diagnosed with cancer, and watching him die, it totally changed my worldview. And I feel like I just really appreciate every day and every moment. And I know that, being on The View is fleeting. I mean, how much longer could I possibly be on? They go through hosts very quickly, I'm sure I'll be fired at some point. But I just try and like enjoy it while I can, and enjoy the responsibility of having this platform. But my family makes me happy. Hanging out with people like you makes me happy. Like-minded, cool, chill people, veterans make me happy. Like, it's very familiar to me because I grew up totally, all the men in my family are in the military, and like it just feels very familiar, and very like every time we have a veteran in the audience, I make sure that we like make them stand up, and then we'll like call them out on the show. I don't know, just being with my family makes me happy. It's my family feels different now since my dad died, but I just try and stay grounded as much as possible, because TV is bullshit and fame is bullshit, and it doesn't mean anything really. That does not make me happy. It doesn't make me feel like comforted at night in any way. And I just try and live in the moment and, know that everything is temporary. And it sounds a little pessimistic too, but it's also like the gift I received after my dad died, is that I just am so much more present and in the moment, and grateful for my health in a way that I've never been before, and grateful for my friends and people that love me, and having this incredible job. I mean, I get to talk for a living. It's pretty cool. And every time I come in the morning and I'm like, oh my God, we have to do like another topic where I'm just going to get the living shit beat out of me, I'm like, I think of my brother being like, I was in Iraq.
Yeah.
Like digging ditches and shooting terrorists. Like, do you want to talk about like life differences? Like, go and get your makeup done and shut up. So it's like, so that's how I feel.
Well, I know you won't shut up, and I hope you won't shut up. But if whatever happens with The View, they would be stupid to get rid of you, especially given the ratings bonanza. But what about doing a show with your brother? You used to have your own radio show. I used to be a guest on your radio show.
I loved radio.
Yeah, you were
because you can have real conversations. Yeah. It's long. At some point, I mean, I'm very inspired by like things like this. Like I know so many people that are doing such incredible work in like the podcast space and radio space. I don't know. I mean, it's so hard to even think in the future. Honestly, like whatever happens, like I'm going to end up in like Arizona or Texas or Montana with like a bunch of shotguns and horses and dogs and like out, never having to put makeup on again. I don't know when that is, but like I was so funny. I was telling my executive producer today, he was like, do you love this city? And I was like, I want to be outside, like in a creek. And like, I love the city, but like at some point I will be like Elizabeth Hasselbeck actually, who, created the seat I'm in. She lives in Tennessee, kind of like in the woods. And I feel like my future is also where she's at. I just love I love being outside. I'm like a kid. Like I just love getting dirty and being outside. Do you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. My wife hears it all the time, and she's here and she's nodding her head. I mean, I'm trying to drag my boys into the mud all the time. Yeah. And, I think you need it to stay grounded. And growing up, I was lucky enough that my father was from the Bronx, but he took us camping and he took us outside, and we wanted to be connected to the earth and to the water because it was so important to my essence, right?
Yeah.
And I think that also can be, a common area for us to unite as Americans, right?
Yeah.
Like the appreciation for this amazing country we have. I mean, even whether it's the Hudson River or the Colorado, it's freaking extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
And the closer we can get to it, I think the better off we'll be.
I always try and go on vacation like in the middle of the country because I just find it very like beautiful and healing. But this country is so gorgeous and there's just so much beauty everywhere. And I went to Yellowstone last summer and I like cried when I first saw it. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. It looks like a painting, and the Snake River, and I don't know. But that's like the side of me that's like never going to go away. No matter how much time I spend in New York and what I do, I just always want to be like fishing and shooting something and like have like smoke and dust on me and then cooking meat. Like, I don't know. I'm like a dude.
This is going to be a good show. This will be much more. I watch The View occasionally. My mother-in-law is a regular watcher. She would have so many questions for you, but I would watch that hunting and fishing show every day.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, if someone wants to do a hunting show with me, I'm down. 100%.
All right, we'll talk about that. Righteous Media's got some projects in development, so maybe we could talk.
That'll be my next phase.
But we are incredibly grateful for you, Megan. I'm grateful for you.
You do incredible work, and all the work you've done for veterans, and you're such a good friend to so many people, and like everybody loves you. And look at your roster of guests. You're kicking ass. And congratulations.
Thank you.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's been...
And it's cool to see cool people doing cool things. Like so many people I know, and again, they're not friends of mine, but people I know are doing like the dumbest projects, the dumbest work, and I'm like, that's so boring. And you're doing really cool shit with cool people and trying to make a difference, and it's awesome.
I'm really grateful.
It's a privilege for me to be here.
Well, thank you.
And your wife is so cool.
My wife is so cool.
I do. And I love Fest
we now come to the point where we want to express our gratitude to you. So we have gifts.
Thank you.
Now I can hold your mic if you want me to do that. We have Angry Americans merchandise.
Do you think that this T-shirt will fit me?
I have multiple. No, I have all kinds of sizes. I have all kinds of sizes. I gave multiple sizes because I actually wanted you to be able to give them away to friends or whoever you want.
It's very cool. I love I was actually going to ask you who did your logo. It's awesome.
And they're made by veterans. Because everybody loves veterans, and if you don't like Oscar,
because you're a sociopath if you don't.
Yes, you're a socio. So buy Oscar Mike gear, or you're a sociopath.
Ah, amazing.
And then I pick a whiskey each show that I think speaks to the guest and represents. It's always American made. Now this is made by High West. Do you know High West? Mm-mm. They're in Utah. And wonderful. High West has created this special barreled Manhattan that's called the 36th vote. Because Utah was the 36th vote to end prohibition.
Okay.
The reason I picked it is because you're out west and you're in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So to bring together, I couldn't find Arizona, but Utah and Manhattan mixed together. You don't have to mix it. It's just there. And it's also just really awesome. I thought that would be a perfect one to give you as an expression of our gratitude. Made in America.
I love it. Thank you so much. I love it.
And then lastly, this is the great Rorschach test / gift.
I love Peeps.
All right.
They're delicious.
You're going to love this part. So we ask every single guest since the beginning of the show.
Do you want me to hold them?
I can hold
Okay.
them. I'm already asking you to hold way too much. 3 colors, yellow, pink, and blue. Which color would you pick Meghan McCain and why?
Oh, man. Maybe blue. And I don't know why, because it's in the flag. I don't know.
There you go.
Because I'm
That's
really
a good
not.
reason.
I'm not a pink girl and I'm not a yellow girl. So
That's
blue.
a good reason. Before we wrap,
so much.
Oscars are this weekend.
Yeah.
And I
I
asked
don't give
you.
a shit. I try so much to carry these movies and the virtue signaling that happens at award ceremonies. I can't take it. And but I loved Uncut Gems.
Yes.
And Adam Sandler's in it, and it's amazing. And I was really pissed he wasn't nominated for all the things. And I find award ceremonies long,
100%.
tiresome.
Have you had Adam Sandler on The View?
No, but I would love for him to come on The View.
Maybe we can get him to go on The View and Angry
Yeah.
Americans at the same time.
He should come on here first because he
Okay.
can talk longer.
You are amazing, Meghan, and
Thank
I'm
you.
so grateful for your friendship and for joining us on the show and for all that you do and for all that your family does. It's
Thank
a
you.
team effort for me. This work is a team effort. I know for you it is as well. So I want to thank you for all that you and your family do for this country and for joining us and
you.
for being a friend.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you,
all
Meghan.
of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Meghan McCain.
Thank you all for coming today, too.
And
Thank you.
my thanks to the live studio audience here.
I'm so active and engaged.
It's not Oprah, but Ferraris for everybody. There you go. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.